Alright, a while back I made a video talking about how much I like the Sony FX30, and after that video, recently, people have been asking me about what lenses I would recommend for it. Now, I don't own a ton of lenses. I got 2 zooms and 1 prime, but those 3 pretty much have me covered for 99% of everything I need. And they're not the best lenses for the Sony FX30, because that's not a real thing. They're just ones that I like and feel comfortable recommending based on personal experience. So instead of giving the same answers over and over again, I thought that it might be better to just sit down and make this video where I talk about my favorite lenses, and then I can send it to people and save myself the trouble of writing the same comment every single time. So anytime anyone asks me what lens they should go with first for their FX30, there's one lens that I absolutely always recommend. And if I could only have one lens for my FX30, it will be this one, the Tamron 17-70. Now, some of you might know that I've already got a video talking about why I like this lens as much as I do, and I'm not going to repeat everything from that one, but if you want to hear more about it, you can check that out. But the short version is it pretty much does everything I need it to. I can use it for personal projects, I can use it for client work, I can easily bring it as my only lens whenever I'm traveling, and I never feel like anything is missing. So yeah, for me personally, it's one of the best lenses for the FX30, and I really don't think you can go wrong with it. I've said this before, but I plan on using mine as much as possible until it breaks, and after that, I'll probably just go and buy another one. Now, there is another lens that I sometimes recommend to people, and that's the Sigma 18-50, because I've used it a few times, and I definitely think that it's also an amazing lens and a great option for the FX30. It's smaller and lighter than the Tamron, so if you're looking for something that's a little bit more compact, then for some people, it might be the way to go, but it is also missing a few features compared to the Tamron that I personally care about, like the built-in stabilization, as well as the extra 20mm at the far end. It's really up to you if you care about those as well, and if you don't, I definitely recommend checking it out because, again, it is a great lens. Either way, what I always tell people is to just go to a store if possible and try them out in person. See how they feel and which one you like more, and go from there. Or better yet, and this is something that applies to pretty much any gear purchase in general, if you can, just rent it for a few days and spend some more time figuring out if it works for what you need it for, and then if you like it, you can decide whether or not you want to spend the money on buying it. But yeah, honestly, whichever one of these lenses you go with, they will probably have you covered for almost everything you need to shoot with the FX30, so I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. And if you're only gonna have one lens for a while, I think that one of these two is gonna be the right move. Now, I also want to talk about another zoom lens that I got around the start of last year that I didn't think I would use nearly as much as I actually do, and that's the Sigma 10-18. Over the past year and a half, I've quietly been using this lens for YouTube videos and for client projects, and even though this is the first time that I'm actually talking about it, it's honestly been a really close second when it comes to my favorite FX30 lenses right after the Tamron. First up, it is a constant f2.8, so it does well in low light. It is nice and sharp, which you would kind of expect from a Sigma lens. It is absolutely tiny, and the price for it is also really good. It's just a lot more versatile than I expected back when I got it. The range on it is actually pretty useful. 10mm is great for small spaces, but I can also zoom in whenever I need to, so it doesn't lock me into only filming super wide angle shots. So yeah, the 10-18 is definitely one of my favorite lenses right now, and it pairs really well with the Tamron 17-70, which is why I've been recommending it to a bunch of people lately. And finally, even though I'm more of a fan of zoom lenses, I usually recommend getting at least one good wide aperture prime lens, and for me personally, that's the Sigma 30mm f1.4. Now, my relationship with this one is kind of weird because I call it my least used favorite lens. It is a great lens that I've had for ages. It was the first lens that I ever bought after only having kit lenses. I love the images coming out of it, but I also use it like once every 3 months. Right now, I feel like zoom lenses work better for the stuff that I shoot, so most of the time I use the Tamron or the Sigma 10-18, but there are some moments when the 30mm is just the better option. And in some ways, I even think that it's the best lens I own because it really is great all around. It's the sharpest lens I got. It's an f1.4, so it's the best for low light. It also gives me the most subject separation whenever I need it. Also, 30mm is, for me personally, the most versatile focal length when it comes to prime lenses. But with all of that said, I think that having a nice fast prime on the FX30 is great, but I also wouldn't recommend picking it up as your first lens for it. Take it from me as someone who bought a prime lens as their first lens. I don't think it's the right move. Maybe it is for some people, it wasn't the right move for me, and I definitely don't think that it's gonna be the right move for a lot of people out there because it just restricts you way too much. And that's pretty much why I think almost everyone out there would get a lot more out of any of the other lenses that I talked about so far before getting just one prime lens. But I still love my Sigma 30mm, and I've kept it around as long as I have because there are definitely moments when it comes in clutch. The thing is, back when I got it, there weren't really that many good options for fast primes for APS-C, but nowadays you've got stuff like the Viltrox 13mm, the Sigma 16mm, Sony 15mm, Viltrox 33mm, and all of those are f1.4, so there's definitely a lot more that you can pick from. So as long as you just pick up one fast prime lens in general, what focal length you go with is up to you and the stuff that you're going to be shooting with it, and I'm not going to tell you which one to get because I can't tell you how to live your life or what you need. Now, there are a few things that I want to talk about that actually help me get even more out of all of my lenses, and I'll do that right after a quick break from the sponsor of this video, which is Motion VFX. Alright, listen, I've never been a fan of the whole process of making my own animated titles and motion graphics, and a while back I did have to do all of that stuff by myself, so I know just how much friction that can add to the video editing workflow, especially if you're someone like me who's not very good at it. And that's exactly why I find the plugins from Motion VFX so incredibly useful for the stuff I work on. They give me super high quality motion graphics for any video that I'm editing that are also really quick and easy to adjust and to work with. That way, I'm able to focus on the parts of video editing that I actually enjoy instead of having to stop what I'm doing and then spending ages on trying to make something like that by myself that's probably gonna end up looking 10 times worse. Now, I've been using products from Motion VFX for the past few years for personal projects as well as for stuff for clients, and I honestly can't imagine having to go back to editing without having them available. Their library is massive and it's constantly growing. There is a ton of variety in terms of what the different plugins are made for, but all of the assets across those different plugins are also super customizable, which means that it's really easy to just adapt them to whatever video you're working on. Motion VFX is one of those platforms that I really think every video editor should, at the very least, know about. So if you're interested in what they got to offer, you can go ahead and check them out through my link in the description, and you can also use the code that I'm going to have on screen to get yourself 10% off of whatever you decide to pick up. It's a great way to make your life as a video editor just a little easier while also saving a bit of money, and it's also a good way to support me and the stuff that I make for this channel. So yeah, thanks again to Motion VFX for sponsoring this video, and thank you for sticking around and watching. So the first thing that I use to get a little bit of extra mileage out of all of my lenses is a set of diopters. I made a video about diopters a while ago, which was honestly kind of cringe, but I will drop a link to it in case you don't know what they are or how they work. And when it comes to all of the lenses that I talked about so far, I can use any of the diopters with any of my lenses, which lets me get a lot closer to anything that I'm filming while also still being able to focus on it. And that means that I don't have to worry about getting macro lenses because these work just fine, at least for the stuff that I shoot. And before you start screaming at me in the comments that diopters and macro lenses don't do the same thing, I know, people have told me this already a bunch of times and I get it. And I'm not saying that diopters and macro lenses do the same thing. But what I am saying is that diopters work for my use cases. So if you're someone who needs a dedicated macro lens, look for macro lenses, figure out which one is going to get the job done for you, and don't worry about what a random person on the internet is saying works for him. Now, with that out of the way, something else I use is clear image zoom, and that's a feature on a lot of Sony cameras that essentially lets you crop in a little bit on your sensor without losing out on any of the detail in your image, and that basically lets you get a little bit of extra reach on the long end of any of the lenses that you're using, and it also works with prime lenses. So if I use it on my Tamron, it turns it from a 17 to 70 into a 17 to 105. It turns the Sigma 10 to 18 into a 10 to 27, and it turns the Sigma 30mm into a 30 to 45 f1.4, which is pretty cool. So if you haven't been using clear image zoom on your Sony camera, you might want to check out how to turn it on for your specific model, because it can definitely be really, really useful, and it's one of those things that can help you get even more out of the lenses that you already own. But yeah, that's pretty much my lens collection right now, and there's nothing fancy about it, nothing revolutionary, it's just stuff that I enjoy. And I still like testing out other lenses to know what's out there in case I need something else, but these are the ones that I keep coming back to because these three pretty much give me everything for the stuff that I work on. And if I ever need something else, I can just go ahead and rent it instead of spending money on something that I'm only going to use once and never touch again. So from now on, when someone asks me what my favorite lenses are for the FX30 or what lenses I would recommend, they're getting a link to this video. And if that's how you got to this one, then hopefully it was able to answer your questions. But with that said, if you feel like it, you can go ahead and drop me a comment and let me know if you've actually used any of the lenses that I talked about in this video and what you think of them, or if there are any other lenses that you enjoy using and you feel like you can recommend to people, you can drop those down below as well. But yeah, that's about it for this one. See ya.